I would go people, process, and then technology, because I think especially having strong leaders are very important. However, you're going to set that up to help you build out that roadmap and those standard processes. I think those are second, especially as you build out your team, having that standard process. And then technology is going to help you do things a lot, much more efficiently, for sure. But until you have those other two, the technology is going to be a wasted investment, in my opinion.
This episode is brought to you by Green Skies Analytics, an audit analytics service provider that works with internal audit departments that have data analysts and are still frustrated with trying to make analytics actually work, aren't getting the expected ROI, who can't break through the communication barrier between the analysts and the audit team, and those that need experienced direction through an audit analytics strategy and process. Those that feel like they've wasted time and money on trainings, aren't getting the value they want, not prioritizing the highest risk areas for the organizations, or have projects that seemingly never get completed. Do you deal with any of that? If you do, go to the show notes of this episode and click the Green Skies Analytics link, or go to greenskiesanalytics.com to schedule a call and understand how Green Skies Analytics makes analytics actually work for internal audit. This episode is brought to you by Supervisor. Supervisor is a ready-to-use audit analytics platform that integrates with your ERP and any other systems you have to provide actual continuous monitoring for risk across all your transactions. They have more than 350 out-of-the-box checks and analytics to enable your team to perform full population testing, detect multiple types of anomalies, and identify potential fraudulent activity. That's going to give you an unparalleled level of assurance in your financial processes. Built by internal audit and accounting experts, so your team can get value from the first day of usage. So imagine having no analytics today, walking in tomorrow, and having up to 350 audit analytics already run. You don't have to necessarily take my word for it, though. Global organizations such as IKEA, Michelin, Lacoste, and numerous others trust Supervisor to enhance their audit capabilities and increase their assurance.
This podcast is also brought to you by Audit Board, the leading cloud-based platform transforming how enterprises manage risk. Audit Board's integrated suite of easy-to-use audit, risk, and compliance solutions streamlines internal audit, SOX compliance, risk management, and security compliance. Automate processes and improve execution with Audit Board's purpose-built solution, which is designed to address the most pressing challenges of today's practitioners. Experience the latest in audit, risk, and compliance technology. Visit auditboard.com to schedule your product walkthrough to see Audit Board's award-winning platform in action today.
Hey everybody, before we jump into the show, I just want to let you know that the Audit Analytics and AI Conference is September 25th and 26th this year. It's all virtual, so no matter where you are in the world, you can absolutely attend. Recordings are also available, so if you are 12 hours away and don't want to be up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, you can purchase the recordings. This is the only conference that's strictly about analytics and AI for internal audit. So you're going to get your practitioners' use cases. This thing is practitioner-led, save for one speaker that we had this year, but everyone else is in your peer group, ranging from the largest internal audit data analytics teams in the world down to the individual contributor who spends, hey, I got 50% of my time I can dedicate towards analytics. Each speaker's mission is to show you how to actually do what they are talking about. So thought leadership is great, and there will certainly be some of that, but for the most part, that's great. We love the thought leadership. Show us how to actually do it. We are currently at 19 speakers and counting, so we're going to add a few more, and you can get up to 19 CPEs if you attend. Check out the link in the show notes, or you can search for Google the auditanalyticsconference.com, and you can register there. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Audit Podcast. I'm your host, Trent Russell, and today on the show, we have Kim Ford. She leads the audit department at Ingersoll Rand. Ingersoll Rand is one of those places where, if you're not familiar with it, once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. They're kind of everywhere. So it's like when I know when I bought a car at a high school, I thought, oh, nobody has this car. And then I bought it, and then seemingly everybody on the road had that car. So it's kind of like that. But they're a manufacturing firm. And from Kim, we wanted to talk about what lessons she's learned in building out internal audit function. So that's one of the things she is especially passionate about, is building on the function. So we want to get our lessons learned over the years from that. Kim has this program where she takes internal auditors, basically trains them up, and then sends them out to work in the finance department. So we talk about the benefits there, obviously having, more of a controls background and having someone in the first line that understands that is really important for finance, but there's other benefits there that we talk about. And then outside of that kind of finance team pipeline, we talk about what Kim's audit committee, what else they want from her. I think it's always good to get the audit committee's perspective. What does your audit committee want from you? I think that's a great question to ask your audit committee if you are a CAE. Data and automation use cases for efficiencies in audit is another topic we hit on. And then Kim had just wrapped up an audit committee meeting, I believe the week, maybe the day even, before we did the recording. And so we just want to understand what was on that agenda and what questions the audit committee had of Kim, to the extent, obviously, that she is allowed to share that. So with that said, here we go. What's in either your browsing history, internet browsing history, or your ChatGPT or Llama 3 or any other LLM history as of late?
Yeah. So browsing history would be probably recent would be China visa requirements, because I'm headed to China next week. Also, kind of personally, the Olympic schedule, because I love sports and the Olympics. So like to know what's going on. So I'm bummed I'm going to miss some of it when I'm in China.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll see it. But
yeah.
We'll see
Favorite event? What are you looking forward to the most?
I love swimming.
Okay.
And I'm not a gymnast, but I really like the gymnastics part too.
Okay.
So.
And I think we're going to publish this post-Olympics. So hopefully we pull in the go. Well, all of them would be great, but specifically for those two.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Perfect. All right. I know in us talking, you mentioned, I think the question was something about, what are you passionate about? And you said building internal audit departments or the function,
right.
Which worked out really nice because a friend of mine messaged me a week before and said, "Hey, I'm trying to build up my function. I'm looking for anybody that could help." And then he offered that up. I mean, very serendipitously, I might say. But from what you've learned, what can you pass on to our listeners who are looking to build or obviously even improve on their function?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, clearly having a plan, and a roadmap is important. So how do you get that roadmap? I really learned about others' organizations, spent a lot of time networking and trying to understand what other people's organization look like. Obviously, taking it from my experience in history too, I knew kind of what I wanted my team to look like and what I didn't want them to look like. So I had some takeaways there, but definitely a lot of networking to understand what others were doing, how they were leveraging technology, were they, 100% insourcing, doing dual sourcing, that kind of stuff. So to try to build that out. The other thing that I would say is go a little slower than you think, because you want to go so fast and you want to build out that organization, but you also have to think about the team that you're bringing along with you. So I wanted to go at a fast pace, but you also have to bring them along. So one, helping make sure that they understand your strategy and they buy in when you hire people and you bring them in. And then two, just giving them some space, because it goes very fast and you're asking them to wear a lot of different hats at the beginning. And, I think just making sure that, sometimes I want to go a lot faster than we probably should have. So we had to kind of slow down a little bit in some stages. So that'd probably be the biggest thing. The other thing that I would say for the most part is, definitely making sure you have that senior leadership buy-in. So throughout the process, I was always updating the audit committee, senior management, and making sure that what my vision was their vision, right? Because I'm here because of what the audit committee wants. So I would always, get their input and make sure that I was headed in the direction that they wanted me to go.
Okay. If you are thinking about people, process, technology, and you're building this out, you could make an argument for an emphasis on either of the three, any of the three. So you could say, if we buy the biggest and baddest tech, then we'll get the best people because that's what they want to work with. If we get the best people, then they can build out all our processes. Or you could say,
Without a good process, it doesn't matter the kind of people we have. So we're going to focus on process. If you had to pick one, knowing that you can't really just pick one, but if you had to, for the sake of the conversation, what would you go with?
Yeah, if I had, I would go people, process, and then technology, because I think especially having strong leaders are very important. However, you're going to set that up to help you build out that roadmap and those standard processes. I think those are second, especially as you build out your team, having that standard process. And then technology is going to help you do things a lot, much more efficiently, for sure. But until you have those other two, the technology is going to be a wasted investment, in my opinion.
I think a lot of people would agree, would definitely agree. All right. And you also had this way of training your internal auditors and then rolling them out into finance primarily, I believe. Talk us through how you do that, and then kind of the feedback you get from the audit committee and the CFO as part of that program.
Yeah, I think, I really want our team to be a feeder to the finance organization. So we'll definitely have a mix of team members, some that want to be career auditors and then some that don't. And so we'll bring someone in, either internally, if it's someone from our finance organization, or externally that may not have internal audit experience, but they have other industrial finance experience or some other type of finance experience. We'll bring them in, and we are a very diversified organization. And we have a lot of different businesses operating a lot of different cultures and with the regions. So we will bring them in, we'll get them some experience in many of our different businesses, try to get them experience in a lot of different processes, whether that would be procurement or, around inventory management or around our pricing and discounting, all of the different areas that they might touch when they're in our finance organization. And also, we'll do cross-functional or cross-regional exchanges where I'll send someone from the Americas to our European team to do a European audit, or into our Asia-Pacific region. We'll flip people back and forth to give them some cross-cultural experience. And then throughout that, always focused on what their career goals are, which may not be internal audit. And especially because they see all those different elements of our finance organization. Maybe they are really interested in, FP&A, or they may be interested in being a controller for a plant, or an operations controller. So we'll work on what the competencies and the skill set that they want to get. And then we'll try to give them those experiences. And then I'll continually share with my peers in the finance organization, whether those would be VPs of finance, and make sure I share with my team members with them. And then when the time is right and there's a good fit, we'll roll them out into the organization. I've moved people we're a highly acquisitive company, so we have a finance integration team. So I've moved people into our finance integration team. We have into our shared services, into an operational excellence role and shared services, into our corporate controllers team, and then into our operations financial department, I guess, if you will, which may be a cost accounting manager at a plant, or a plant controller.
Yeah, I gotta imagine benefits here being, I know, and we're going to talk about this in depth on a future episode, but first line responsibilities, usually they go, hey, risk management, not really our thing. That's second and third line. But then when you have these people that you're throwing back, I'm going to say throw, it's very casual. Yeah, we just throw them back out there to the first line, and they have a better understanding of risk management and controls and things like that. And then probably makes it a little easier, right?
Right, exactly. And I think they're, so, if you think about what the breadth, when I talk about breadth of experience, rather just processes, they're also gaining project management skills. They're figuring out how to be resilient and adaptable, because when does an audit ever go the way that you originally planned it to go? As well as strong communication skills, because, a lot of times when we're doing corporate audits, or, even if we're doing an audit of a location, they're probably going to have a closing meeting with the location leadership or some of our financial leaders. So they get a lot of, strong skills that they can take with them into that role.
All right. I got to imagine people listening be like, yeah, I kind of want to go work for Kim. Do you have any open positions right now that you're aware of?
I actually do have a data analyst position that's open right now. So, but we're always, like I said, we're like highly acquisitive. So I'm always probably continuing to grow our team, when it's necessary. So,
and I'm sure the CFO loves that initiative, right? Like, hey, we're just making our people even better and sending them back out. I'm sure the audit committee does too. What else do they want from you, though? I'm sure the audit committee goes, hey, we have more people on the first line now, and we're seeing it. We can feel it. We get it. The communication's better. Risk management overall probably is better. But what else does the audit committee want from you personally?
Yeah. So one of the things that our audit committee has really requested is that we be visible in the organization. So they want us on site. Obviously that was very hard to do when we didn't do it in COVID, right? But as soon as we kind of came out of COVID, they were like, look, we don't want your team. We're happy that we're able to figure it out, but we want your team to be at our sites, to be in our businesses for a number of different reasons, not only to, obviously assess risk, but also, they see us as a leader we can, educate people on controls. They want us to be highly consultative. So with projects that are going on the design of controls, our audit committee, we really walk a fine line of independence, I think,
I think that's great. I think everyone should, but
yeah. So we, heard people say, there's a line and there, it's not, we're definitely in the gray.
Good.
So we'll have, I'll assign my team, to various projects if we're doing a system implementation or, if there's a change in process so that we can, provide that advisory on controls in that particular area. And that's what my audit committee really wants us to be business partners. I'm a strong advocate for analytics and automation, which I know, we may talk about a little bit more. But that's another way that they see us as, we can, when we're out there, we can kind of almost show them the way. So
you kind of stole my segue there. So my segue was going to be into analytics and automation. You just stole my segue. So you just take over, Kim. You can be the host. You just run. You got the questions and everything. You just you go ahead and run it. No, I was curious though on how you almost demonstrate or show the audit committee that you are, visible. Does that make sense? Is there a metric that you use, or how do you measure that? Might be the best way to ask that question.
I don't know that I necessarily have a obviously our audit plan, right? We show them. So, every quarter I'm giving them an update as to where we've been the prior quarter, whether that would be on an audit. We also do acquisition reviews for new acquisitions. If we're working on projects, I'll share all that information with them on, where we've been and what we've done. So I do give them that update on a quarterly basis. I do have a visual. It's not a good one. We're trying to work on a different, which kind of just shows, globally, all of our entities and when we've been to each entity.
All right. So now let's move to the analytics and automation. How are you using technology? Well, I'll just keep it as broad as technology to gain efficiencies and effectiveness.
Yeah. So we're really trying to use analytics, automation, and we're using generative AI as well. Analytics we're using in both planning when we're setting up our annual plan, and we kind of refresh it on a quarterly basis with financial metrics largely. We'll also use it in our audits. Even, we'll gather a bunch of data. We do have, we use Snowflake and we have a data lake, and we'll get in there and start, digging into a lot of information around number of purchase orders, or whether that would be looking at journal entries, looking at T&E at a particular location. And sometimes we scope it out, right? It helps us determine, okay, what, how many transactions, do we see any red flags, that kind of stuff. And if we do, then we'll scope that in. If there isn't anything, then we'll say, well, it's not even worth our time to spend on it. So we're trying to use it for that. We're using automation largely to help us from an efficiency standpoint for the team. We want to be as self-sufficient as we can. So in our larger systems like SAP and Oracle, when we can go grab supporting data ourselves, and we can eliminate or reduce the time spent by the location and providing us the data, whether it's populations or support, we'll try to do that also. I also have responsibility for SOX, so we are highly leveraging robotics process automation to try to grab that. And also starting to use that information to populate some of our testing templates that we would use. I think I shared with you when we talked earlier that we've just purchased a tool called Data Snipper. We've probably only had that live for 45 days, and the team loves it. It's so helpful using that OCR to populate things for them. There's a lot more that we can do with it. We just kind of rolled it out because we're in our heavy SOX season right now, just for them to try to find ways to leverage it. And we just have a list of a mile long of things that we think we can do with that. So really pleased with that as well. Generative AI, we are using that to help us identify risk for our younger staff to understand risk and controls of the processes that they're using. We tell them to, write a question. If you don't understand what the risk and controls around the procurement are, then, write a question to, in our AI, which we have a private AI that we, or ChatGPT that we use. And then we also use Audit Board for our testing and reporting. And we're starting to have it generate audit reports for us, help us to write issues, create issues based on the testing templates. So really just everything that we can, because what I continue to tell my team is I want them to spend their time really on the analysis part, right? And to, if we have a problem, identify that problem and help find what that solution is. I don't care if they, if they spend 2 hours populating a test template or finding the data, right? So that's what our mission is and how we want to use, how we're trying to use automation, AI, and analytics right now. Okay.
I like the idea of ChatGPT or any other LLM. It's basically a training tool for auditors to ask. Because rarely does anyone come out of college and like, yeah, I'm totally comfortable asking what I feel like is a dumb question. I know for myself, and it's been a while, but I know I've talked about this on the show. I didn't ask enough of those questions because I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to know this. So I don't really want to ask, and I don't want somebody to think I'm dumb. And so I'm just going to basically wait it out, and then I'll get a review note and fix it. That's what it, which creates a mess for everybody, an unnecessary one. So to be able to, just sit there and have a conversation and get those questions answered. And then obviously the face-to-face kind of training that happens with, a real auditor is extremely helpful because they can provide a lot more context even than an LLM can. But I really like that way of using it. We get a lot of questions around analytics, automation, SOX use cases. And I know you mentioned RPA specifically. Is there one, two that you go, no matter where I went, this is one test or one initiative with RPA that we would use to really get value out of it?
Again, I think the biggest thing that I've seen it for is being able to go in and extract the right supporting data. So we use it in we use Blackline for reconciliations too. So we'll have it, pull all of the, the reconciliations that we're going to test. We can just populate it, and they'll, give the bot that what we're going to test, and that'll come out. We also have a lot of in SAP, we have a lot of our supporting documentation that supports transactions and journal entries in there. So we will have it pull, once we have our samples of journal entries that we're going to select, we'll have it pull all that data for us too. So that's generally how we're using it right now. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can use it also. My team is helping our shared service organization who has responsibility for T&E. They have these past due notices that they send out. but we're helping them automate that right now so that they won't even have to do anything. It'll pull the report, it'll create the email for them and send it out. So, that's one of those ways that I was saying again that we kind of
I like it. Perfect. I know you said you're hiring for at least one full-time analytics position. For those that are maybe curious to know if they could set up something similar to what you have. So we have bots, we have automation. We have bots and automation, and then we have analytics. Yep. Do you already have like a full-time DA person on that, or what does the people side of that look like?
Yeah. So I have one person who really is kind of leads our strategy. He and I worked together before in my prior company, and we built out an analytics side of audit. So I hired him to kind of do our strategy. And again, this is with the trying to grow the team. I don't have a full-time analyst right now. So we brought what he had, which we already knew. And then we're trying to build upon that. We also have a couple of young staffers who are interested. So we've been giving them some projects to work on, kind of side projects, if you will, to give them some experience. But now we're ready for that full time. We've kind of proven, and that was kind of one of the things we wanted to do I wanted to do with the audit committee and with senior leadership is to say, this is build the business case basically, right? So look what we've done just with people working on this as a side project. Imagine what we can do if we have somebody that's dedicated to this full time. So that's, that they were like, yes, go, you've already proven it. So, we've got that one resource that we're bringing in and we're actually looking for it. Whether it would be somebody that's really technical, that is already I'm not looking for necessarily a data scientist, but somebody that is technically savvy, that understands data more on the analyst side, or somebody that's an auditor that is really interested in technology and they want to learn. I will train them. I will know. So I think that would be the ideal candidate, but those are really hard to find, as you know.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone about this last week in that for whatever reason, it's easier to take an auditor if they are curious and passionate about technology. That's you have to have that. You can't just take any auditor and go, hey, go learn this, because there's so many that just go, I don't really want to do that. And it's hard to make someone do that, but maybe not easier, but we found they add more value to be able to take an auditor who's interested in technology, train them, as opposed to take a full, hardcore data scientist type person and go, now go get interested in audit, or, go learn the business. And then that is a little tougher, it seems like. Yes.
Agreed.
All right.
Yeah. And that's how like I had mentioned, John, the person that works for me, that's how he was an auditor. He worked in public accounting. He got interested, got into analytics. And then, I brought him on board to kind of do a combination of both audit and analytics.
Yeah. Okay. I know you also recently had your audit committee quarterly meeting, right? Update to the extent you can, just to kind of behind the scenes for folks that aren't involved with that, maybe aspiring CAEs that want to know what exactly happens in there. I know I was always curious about that, and I definitely wasn't privy to those conversations. I was like, what do you guys talk about? So to the extent that you can share, what was the agenda that you had? And just generally speaking, what can you share with the audience who's interested to know what happens during those conversations?
Sure. Well, obviously, there's a lot of other things that are going on in the audit committee besides, what I do, right? So where they're going through the queue and asking questions about disclosures, that kind of thing. This quarter, we gave an enterprise risk management update. So I work very closely with our CFO on that. So, and we do an annual survey and we kind of talk about our top 10 risks. So we spent some time talking about that. And then from a audit perspective, every quarter, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I will share with them, here's the status of where we are with our, again, because I have responsibility for SOX testing. Here's where we are with our SOX testing. Here is where we are against our audit plan as far as audits that have been completed. I provide them for reading a summary of the audits, and I'll bring to their attention any audits that I think that I want to discuss with them that I think that they need to be aware of. We always talk about open issues, and the severity of those issues that are open, and any past due. They want to make sure that the business has a focus and are taking seriously any control gap that we've identified and are addressing it promptly. So we'll talk about that. I also mentioned locations visited. I'll share that with them. Any control improvement areas or themes that I see across the company where maybe we need to spend time. I always try to share activity with the audit team on the audit team. As I mentioned, those special projects that we're working or anything I want to bring up to them as far as, metrics around our goals around analytics, AI, and automation so that they can see that we're progressing. And then they always want to know about resources, right? Am I adequately resourced to deliver the plan that I have presented to them and that they have, approved? And then right now, everybody's always interested in cyber. So our CISO gives an update. So one of the things that they have asked us to do is some of those key metrics that we are doing some independent validation of those. And so I'll give them an update on, okay, yes, I'm aligned with what the CISO has mentioned. So that's kind of what happened this past quarter.
I think that's a good bullet point kind of list for those that are unfamiliar. But in addition to that, so I would always tell people, like, take that list basically that Kim just gave you and then go to your audit committee and go, do you care about any of this stuff? And they go, yep, I like 2 and 3. Cool. I'll give you 2 and 3 every time. And I'm also going to give you, from my perspective, 6, 7, and 8, because I need you to know this also. So I think the way you laid it out is, I think it's going to be really helpful for folks.
Good. The one thing that I also share, I always this is obviously mid-year for us. And so we're doing mid-year performance reviews. So I asked in executive session, I asked them, are you getting what you need? Is there anything differently that you'd like to see from myself or my team?
Right.
So I try to ask them that at least a couple times a year when we have executive sessions.
Yeah. What can I do for you? Yeah. And that way they get what they want.
Yes.
So
correct.
yeah, I love having those in there. All right. What do you feel like? We got 2 more. What do you feel like you need to take analytics to the next level over there?
Yeah. Well, as clearly, I think we need those. Now I need those technical resources so I can go faster, right? We've got, I mentioned we've got somebody kind of working on analytics on the side. I have somebody working on automation on the side. And I really, while I want to make sure that the team stays engaged, right? I think it's critical as far as the future of audit. That's where we're going. So if you're an auditor and you don't really want to be involved in that, I think, that's going to be, there are going to be fewer people like that aren't going to know how to use and leverage analytics and maybe even build some simple things as far as automation goes. So I want to definitely go faster. So I think we need some of those technical resources. And, obviously if there was some magic tool out there, I don't think, there are a few things I know, right, that would help, that would be user-friendly, that would be very, and cost-effective as far as software to help us do those things. I'd be interested in that as well.
Perfect.
That would be my wish.
All right. People are probably tired of me constantly saying something to the effect of, I love it when we get practical advice from listeners. And you absolutely, I think with the audit committee agenda, you nailed that. And then also your vision for analytics and automation and how that's playing out. And the advice of, basically lower expectations on speed, slow down, make wise decisions, which we don't always hear. So I think that's all very, very good practical advice for a lot of folks that are listening. But that said, is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with?
I probably 2 things. One is professionally, if you're a CAE or an audit leader, don't be afraid to try new things. I think we sometimes get stuck in audit in the way of doing things the way we've always done them, and being seen as, strictly compliance, check the box, right? I don't want our profession to be seen as that way. So I think, as I mentioned, and the things that I'm excited about is, helping to educate your organization in different areas, whether that be risk or some of the tools and technology that I mentioned, but moving more into that business partner role. So that would be professionally. Personally, I would like to stress the importance of everyone getting a colonoscopy. I know that sounds strange, but my father passed away of colon cancer, and it was terrible to watch, and could have been preventable. He was 72 years old when he had his first colonoscopy, and obviously it was too far away, far of a stage, but colon cancer is the fourth most commonly diagnosed cancer in the United States and the second leading cause of death for cancers. And it's highly preventable with screening and treatable. So when detected early.
Hey everyone, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Audit Podcast. Whatever platform you're listening on right now, I'm sure there's a subscribe button somewhere, so please hit the subscribe button there. If you're listening through iTunes or Spotify, feel free to go give us that 5-star rating. It only took me about 16 seconds to give myself a 5-star review, and it really helps to get future guests to come on the show, so we'd really appreciate that. Lastly, be sure to check out the show notes and follow us on all our social media channels on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on TikTok. Also, if interested, please sign up for our weekly newsletter from the Audit Podcast. Thank you all. Have a great one.